Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. My name is Simon, and this is Failcast F1, the podcast show for delightful news, gossip, and a little bit of retro reminiscence. And as always, joined by the amazing Esther Ben, definitely zero. How you doing?
Hello, old boy. I'm doing fantastically. I'm celebrating my win last time out with double energy drinks. Today's
Hey!
beverage is a 28 black, absolute zero, guava and passion fruit flavour, and a classic Red Bull because you don't mess with the classics.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm doing really good. It's cold as balls here. I mean, not as cold as it is in America, obviously, but it's nice to be all cozied up with my F1 buddy, and we can talk some news. We actually got news this week, which is an improvement.
We have. It's clearly lots and there's lots and lots of topics as we was going through beforehand. We vaguely have planned for this one. Well, you have. I shall freeball it as usual. But yeah, it's proper good. But I think before we begin, we need to. You had a comment about it. Did you win the British Grand Prix, your home Grand Prix, and not even celebrate it? So I think we need to.
There we go. We have suitably marked the occasion.
I feel like you need to say that Britain had the best fans.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, the best fans. They were great all weekend. And of course, the Hungarian fans are also great, and they've been great all weekend. I think it's my favourite race after the British Grand Prix, but it's also my favourite race instead of the British Grand Prix. I think I've now met all the PR requirements required by the FIA.
Excellent. Hashtag
It is simultaneously the best Grand Prix of all time and the second best Grand Prix of all time, and will not question how that's possible.
Super duper.
Also, I want to give a quick honourable mention before we dive in to the Grand Tour, Jeremy Clarkson's show replacing Top Gear, who have stolen our jokes.
What?
If you look at not the latest episode of the Grand Tour, but the last one, they were talking about a new Mercedes that's been designed by Lewis Hamilton, and he made the joke that when you get to the location you're going, the sat-nav will say to you, #blessed. And I was like, Jeremy, are you in here somewhere? Have you been watching?
So we've now literally become our own underground selves. That's our problem.
Exactly.
Damn you.
Well, I don't want to bring the podcast into further disrepute, but I'm afraid statistically there's a chance I'll win this race.
Well, there's statistically a chance that I will be absolutely nowhere near, because at the minute I'm doing this in career mode and I am redonkulously off the pace. And it's the first time in career mode where I can't even complete like the race practice. The little things that you do. I can't even get a green on it, and I'm like, "Come on, Schmiff." So yeah, you go nuts because I'm going to be shite.
I want to say, historically, down all the Codemasters games, this has been my strongest circuit out of nowhere. I don't know why I'm good at it. I don't particularly like it. It just seems to work for me. I've always had good results. Every single-player career mode, even F1 2012 or 2013, when I was driving for Manor, I won it. But it's interesting what you've said, because I had the same thing. I was garbage in practice, garbage in qualifying, and then, if you remember, this was the round I was tweeting about, where I beat Sebastian Vettel into second by something like 43 seconds, and I got like 7 overtakes on the opening lap or something.
Oh wow!
And you were like, "Wow, that's an insane result," and it was here. Like I'd had a terrible qualifying session, so I'm hoping for a repeat. Gap between us now is slightly less than 20 points.
It is.
So it's getting a little spicy, and we are now past the halfway point.
We are, which is a little landmark in itself. So I think we're doing quite well.
Yeah, very often we don't get this far. So
I know. I'm enjoying the fortnightly format. I think it's working well for us.
it is. And before we dive in, last thing, notice the Red Bulls are
Shocking.
crap. Yeah, that's really poor, isn't it?
It is. They're doing terribly. I'd noticed that both Renaults have only scored 1 point all season. I don't know what had happened to them. I think it's because we're yoinking their points, probably, with our arseholes.
Yes.
And it's the two McLarens with now.
Boo. Boo.
Even Merrick's.
Well, let's give them another chance, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, we've got a lot. I'll dive straight into the news. We won't do the usual whatever it is we do. I forget. Pressure. Let's dive straight into the news, because I want to talk to you about Pierre Gasly, because we've had a good month for delusional comments, haven't we, really?
It has been like we've been in an alternate world, I feel.
Yeah, I do wonder what universe he's inhabiting. Because he commented quite publicly, and I was tweeting with you about it earlier this week, stating that he is proof that you don't need a huge amount of money to make it into Formula One. Like, you don't need vast backing. I was thinking, you do realise your career is underwritten by the world's largest beverage company. He's like, how do you even draw that conclusion, right? And I've been giving this some thought, and the only thing I could come up with was, well, his sponsors don't write a cheque to themselves.
No, that's true. That's true.
So he's arguing he's not a pay driver on that basis. Seems a bit of a stretch.
It would be like Bernie resurrecting Braberman and popping himself in the car when he was in charge and going, "Oh, I'm not a pay driver." No.
I'm here on merit. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I rate Gasly. He is here on merit. But
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, that was an insane comment. I mean, on the list of stupid things to say, and everyone has, the drivers have like their PR guys with them, with the little tape recorders.
Yeah.
Now, normally, like, they wait until after the driver has said something to debrief them in private. But if I was his tape recorder guy, I would have slapped him around the back of the head as the sentence was leaving his mouth. to stand there in a T-shirt covered in Red Bull logos and say, "I am proof you don't need the backing of big money to get into Formula One," is just an insane concept.
Yeah. No.
Wrong. You are fake news.
That sentence was sponsored by Fox. Just no. And what even drove him to even decide to say that? Are people trying to say that he's there not on merit then, or?
I don't know. Well, the thing is, like, our old pal Pierre, he's had a history of making some odd public statements, as I recall, because he's the same guy who's announced himself as the Toro Rosso race driver for 2 consecutive seasons.
Yes.
Before he signed a deal or ever turned a wheel in anger in the car. So I don't know. He kept last year and this year. I mean, I know eventually this year he was in position and whatnot, but I do recall before he was actually part of the team, he announced himself that drive like 3 times. So I don't know where he lives, but it isn't among the rest of us.
I wonder if he's been taking one of those. I've forgotten that motivational speaker name that says you can only ever watch a movie once and then don't ever watch it again because what are you doing with your life? But I've forgotten his name. But he reminds me of one of those people that's just like, if I say it, I will will it to happen. The universe will correct itself for me. Maybe he'll announce himself, I don't know, as the F1 2019 world champion, probably in about October this year.
To be honest, though, the only announcement he could make that I would believe is that he has a contract for the 2011 season with Sauber.
Just been speaking to Manisha, #contracts.
Yeah. To my telephone. So yeah, I mean, there's not really much more we can say about that. Just no, Pierre, really. Just no.
Pierre.
Yeah, and given that it was Haas initially who were making delusional statements, and now it seems to be all Red Bull affiliated people. Helmut Marko talking about the natural silky talents of people like Daniel Kvyat, who we're going to speak about quite a bit later in this episode, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It just seems like they've picked up the baton from Haas. Incidentally, though, they also handed the baton straight back to Haas, who have managed to go from getting into trouble for making delusionary statements to getting into trouble for making realistic statements. I don't know if you saw this, but Gunther Steiner had commented that he would like to have an American driver in the Haas car, but that none of them are good enough for Formula One.
Dear.
And this triggered a pretty vitriolic response from the American fans. And I was combing through Twitter earlier for some gems, Among them were quite a few American drivers actually in IndyCar.
Oh, right.
Graham
Rossi
Rahal
pops up as an immediate.
I mean, I would have thought Rossi would be worth a punt, but Graham Rahal or Rahal or however you pronounce it, I don't know. Americans are weird with names. Oh, spun it very stupidly.
Ooh.
I hugged the apex and it was a bad call.
The car does spin on these curbs very easily.
It does indeed, but it's okay. It was an in-lap anyway. So apparently, based on the comments that Rahal's tweet elicited, this is something of a hot topic for him, and he tweets about Haas's opinions on American drivers quite frequently because he was implying, well, if that's your attitude, we don't want to drive for you anyway.
Interesting.
And then, a lot of people were tweeting, well, shut up about it then, Graham. Now, this is a tricky situation because, to be honest, I don't think necessarily Steiner is wrong because I can't think of any American drivers that are a definite shoe-in for Formula One. And a lot of fans showed, and again, I hate criticising the fans, right? But there was some pretty alarming ignorance on show, actually. A lot of people were arguing, well, it doesn't matter, Graham, because IndyCar's a million times better, Formula One's a snooze fest. Haas were the 8th team out of 10, so it's not even worth your time. And it's like, you really don't understand competitive motorsport, in a situation where the engineering is part of the competition. I mean, that is don't get me wrong, I'm no Haas lover, but by Christ, 8th in the Formula One Constructors World Championship is going to be several leagues above being the top team in NASCAR. It's a different level of competition, People were commenting all kinds of things. Well, I rate Graham Rahal better than Romain Grosjean, and you think, well, it's very easy to say that because they're not driving equal machinery. But even terrible Formula One drivers are still among the world's best because that's the nature of the sport. And it ties into the conversation you and I were having last week where, Ross Brawn was talking about the quality of overtaking. And people were saying, well, F1's boring again now because there's no overtaking. And as I was saying then, I say again now, you don't get a lot of overtaking when the drivers are competent.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to drive wide cars like this defensively. And if there was a lot of overtaking, then the guys being overtaken are doing a bad job. They wouldn't be fit for Formula One.
Yep.
So, there were some names thrown out there. I mean, I still think Alexander Rossi probably was worthy of Formula One. He just needed some time to find his feet. But it's not like he was on the level of Gasly, Van Dorn, Ocon. I mean, for me at least, and I could be being ignorant here, maybe that I'm just not familiar with his work, but for me, he's not spoken about in the same tones, frankly. I don't know how you feel about that.
I think the issue that I have with, not necessarily about Rossi in general, because I do rate him and I think that he's good, but he's gone over to IndyCar, and the way how IndyCar is lottery car, in the same way as NASCAR is caution car, is that they play to the American audience where if it's not like a hyperactive FPS styled adventure every minute, then they turn off because they're bored. And so they don't, where it's a more level playing field and it's all about strategy under cautions and things like that, you don't necessarily get the best driver rise to the top regardless. So yes, he won the Indy 500, but that was a strategy call about fuel. That wasn't necessarily about being the fastest driver on the day. And I can appreciate with F1 it's not about the fastest driver on the day because it's the machinery in the car, but I don't know, just the way how IndyCar and NASCAR and other American-based series is all about the letting everyone catch back up again to have another go. I don't think that then lets you always know who the best drivers are, and so you can kind of fade into obscurity because, like, Sato has been over there for years. I rate Sato, apart from his 2005 season, which was dire. And,
yes, it was.
And he was lucky that Honda had done Sympathy Aguri for him for him to stay about.
Sympathia Curry, that's a fantastic name.
And yeah, it's... But, like, he's won a few things. He won Indy again. But he's not at the front because it's always about tactics and cautions and this, that and the other. Again, I wouldn't know who the best drivers were there, and I watch IndyCar. So I find it very difficult. I wonder, did you spot any other names of people that they were kind of mooting at the time?
Joseph Newgarden. That was the most common one.
Okay. I see. Now he
people
used
were
to
saying
be quite crash happy.
People were saying in their opinion Joseph Newgarden was the best candidate.
I can see what
again, like it's a name I've heard of, but the fact that I've only tangentially heard of it doesn't, There have been some Indy drivers that even though I've never watched Indy, their names were burned into my mind as high quality drivers. I'm thinking Dario Franchitti leaps to mind immediately. Like I just knew who he was. It's kind of like people who've never watched wrestling know who Hulk Hogan is.
Yeah.
And so I have heard of Newgarden, but again, not on the same terms. And it's hard, right? Because why would you put a driver from a certain country into the car if he's not the right fit? And I mean, that is a debate, I suppose. That it's quite a broad, sweeping statement to say there are no American drivers who are good enough for Formula One right now, which is what he was implying. It's not that Americans can't drive in Formula One. He's just saying right now, out of drivers that are on the market and available, there are none that we think can handle Formula One, which is probably true because they don't have a ladder system over there that enables them to prepare for Formula One because it's a different style of motorsport. And that's not me saying it's a worse style of motorsport. I criticise Indy and NASCAR because I think they've got elements that are too artificial, but it's not that I'm critical of the discipline overall. It's the way that the actual competition is neutered in the name of entertainment, which sounds really stupid, but to me it's, I don't know. There's a balance to be struck, and I'm aware that what I'm saying sounds a little odd, but it just strikes me as artificial competition when you're allowing people to screw up and have no consequences for it because they'll be allowed back up to the pack automatically. Bottas has ruined my lap.
I just saw that. That was terrible. Yeah, no, I completely agree. If there was one or two drivers that I would have liked to have seen over, I'd have really liked to have seen Helio Castroneves in Formula One because he's to IndyCar what Barrichello was to Formula One because he's just been there forever.
Is that a compliment?
Well, no, it's just every year you'd come in and you go, and Uncle Rubens is there. So it's now like Uncle Helio. But he's Brazilian, not American, so that doesn't necessarily count. And I guess like when you think of it at the moment, you've got Newgarden, Simon Pagenaud's French, so he's the other one that's doing very well over at IndyCar at the moment. Chilton's making a name for himself, and I guess that's kind of a benchmark actually, is that Chilton was considered a joke. I think he was grossly underrated for what he'd done.
Hashtag bring back Max Chilton.
Yeah. We need to bring out that little thing again, don't we?
We never had the T-shirts printed. We never had them printed.
No. Chilton Mania will take place. And it may well take place because... Chillmania. Better than Chillblains. But the fact that he in his rookie season is diving around in the top 10 and scoring very decent results over in IndyCar, yet he was considered not good enough to be about and was there for his money, blah, 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 blah. You kind of think, does that then mark the quality of what the rest of the field is, if that's what he's doing in his rookie season? You know what I mean?
But you kind of made my point again there better than I did. Because again, he's in Formula One where there's not these steps within the race to allow a bad driver to catch up and look competitive.
Yep.
Formula One is harsh and unrelenting, right? And if you miss a beat or the car's not on it or it's not set up correctly, there is no masking it. And so he was written off as complete and utter garbage. Whereas now in IndyCar, he's suddenly looking like something of a protege. And I think that demonstrates that actually even poor, quote unquote, Formula One drivers are amongst the best in the world.
Yeah. No, completely agree.
Oh God, stop coming out of the pits. I'm trying to get a clean lap. I can be faster.
I was trying to get my eye in because I've been playing too much Gran Turismo Sport, and I feel like I'm driving this car like I drive a Gran Turismo like truck. I'm too heavy-handed.
I've been watching your videos, and it's made me want to get that game, even though I had no interest in it prior.
Very, very good actually. I've got a couple more videos going up of. I do a meet every Monday if I can get on there with. Oh, that was a terrible spin. Oh no. I've missed a barrier.
Have you spinned in the same place I did, maybe?
Possibly.
Did you catch the apex and it just threw you around?
Yeah.
I have to watch that in the race because that will absolutely knacker my race. Get out of my way, Alonso.
And I've got an Ocon in the way. Right.
How have I just lost 4 tenths? I overtook Alonso and lost 4 tenths.
Spanish curse. Damn you, Spanish eyes.
Traffic really does mess me up in this game every single time. I hope these tyres are good for another run. Hope I've got enough fuel for another run. What's my fuel like? Stop coming out of the pits. Should be banned.
Should be banned. Oh, they're all coming out because it's the final run time. Vettel out my way. Thank you. What was I going to say? Yeah, so Gran Turismo GT Sport on a Monday. I have a meet up with people from the sixaxis.com and we take different cars around and do different things, and I generally make an ass of myself by hitting people off. But if you do the sport mode where it's all online, it's the same layout as iRacing. So there's races that you compete in for like safety ratings and stuff like that every 5 minutes. So you just kind of pick up one of the 3 or 4 things that are kind of going on at that time, qualify if you want to, or just join the race at the back, and then you get. What's really good about it is it pits you against the people that are most near your safety and driver rating as your grid. So you're always in a competitive race, and it's kind of really good way of pitching people against each other.
I've always wanted to do iRacing, to be honest with you, but I suspect I'm not good enough.
It's I pay is what I call it. It's through the nose. It's too much, in my humble opinion.
I didn't realise how expensive it was actually. I was looking at membership the other day, and it's like, well, first of all, my PC's hardly a beast. I don't have proper hardware, and I guess if you're paying that much to do it, you're probably quite hardcore. So I'm probably not going to be able to compete. Anyway, we should get back onto proper F1 news.
Yes, sorry.
In closing out, I think what Haas need to do if they're serious, and I don't know if they are, is to maybe start a driver development program like other Formula One teams do. To maybe there are no American drivers right now capable of competing in Formula One, but that's not going to change just by you complaining about it. I've messed up that lap as well.
That's actually a very good point. For being an American team, what are they doing to make sure that America creates a culture that will push them towards sports outside of the American sports? Nothing.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Because if you look at someone, generally to get into Formula One, you have to cut your teeth in the European series, right? You have to be on the European ladder, because the other ladders are so different that the experience is not useful, right? And you're not going to be attractive to a Formula One team. The exceptions to that are Jacques Villeneuve and Juan Pablo Montoya, I believe. But other than that, historically, you won Formula 3000 or Formula 3.
Hello, John Wayne.
Moved up, and if you look at,
thank you for joining.
If you look at Mark Webber's career, he spent his pre-Formula 1 years in the UK, competing in Europe. and it's very expensive to do that. But out of a Formula One team's budget, especially a company like Haas Automation, I don't think it would be ridiculous to suggest they could sponsor a young American driver, bring them to Europe, run them in, some of the European series, run them in German Formula 4, move them up to
what is this game?
F3.
This is F1 2017. Whoever that was.
And then
yeah.
And develop them into the Formula One driver that you want, rather than expecting series that are not equipped to do it to develop them for you. How are we on the old timing boards?
For F and 6.
You've beat me by
10.
0.139. It's annoying because I could have gone faster, and I've got the fastest sector 3. By close to a tenth over Bottas.
I feel like I cut my fastest lap as well, so it's
seems interesting.
Not good. Because I'm trying to think of American drivers that are in lower series that are in European championships that are doing well, and I can't think of any. Because there was one or two kind of kicking around a little while ago, but they weren't on any particular driver development program, and they've kind of fizzled off somewhere. And I can't think of any American talent coming through. So I think you're right.
No,
let's get on it, Haas.
They have an obligation to fix that, I think.
Agreed.
I mean, I think it would be beneficial for all of us. I mean, I complain about Haas all the time, and I'm critical of their business model, and I think they undermine the Constructors' Championship and everything else. But that's not to say I don't want an American team as a full constructor, and I don't want the sport to do well in America. Of course I do. It'd be good for all of us. I mean, all the teams would benefit from that, because suddenly you'd have teams businesses wanting to come in and sponsor because of the extra exposure over there, and they can't all sponsor one team, not realistically, so that would be more money swirling around for teams like Sauber to hoover up, Force India, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I do want them to crack America, as it were, but I'd like them to do it properly. I don't think it's something that can be shoehorned in, because current F1 fans won't appreciate it, and American F1 fans won't appreciate it. I mean, they're not stupid. They already know that Haas is not competitive right now, and that's something we said actually in 2013 before they entered the sport, or 2014 even. You and I had this discussion and said, will they be able to get fans if they're not competitive? Because, and again, I know this is a generalization and a stereotype, but the general perception is that Americans appreciate victory. They appreciate success, right? That's what they value. And that's why perhaps competitions like IndyCar or whatever are constantly trying to make it like this action-packed, racing so close, even if it's artificial, because it gives some meaning to the victory, right? And pulling around at the back, I don't think that's really going to inspire American fans to run into the spot.
Ooh, the audio quality has gone absolutely dire. I hope that will pick back up again in a sec.
Yeah, you sound really crackly to me, mate.
Yeah, it sounds like we've gone deeper underground. Hopefully that will kind of pick itself back up again.
I've been kicked out.
Oh.
Check the race director. They told me I lost connection to the server. I know my broadcast is down. I'm no longer live.
You're still here. I'm not watching you through the screen, but I can invite you back into the game because it's quali.
Yeah, invite me back in.
Done. And we'll see if you're able to actually join back in again. If not, then we'll quit out and dive back.
Yeah, you're breaking up. Have you sent me an invite?
I've sent an invite.
Okay, I'm pressing join, and nothing is happening.
Okay.
Can you look at me on your screen?
Yeah.
Right. You're watching me now. I'm going to wiggle all the way down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, I'm watching you. You're in. You're fine.
Okay. That's fine. Well, because he told me I was disconnected.
How bizarre.
Do you tell people to subscribe and click the bell?
I don't normally tell people to click the bell because I feel like that is telling people to do things that they don't want to do. I do tell people to subscribe subliminally, but I don't particularly. We don't do like the push sell. Hopefully, people will stumble across what we do and come and join in for lols. People don't normally turn up for qualifying anyway. They know that the race is there, and we get much more views afterwards. From other places as opposed to YouTube Live because people generally are not liking YouTube at the moment. Okay. I did notice though that we've both gone for the alternate strategy on the tyres for quali.
Yeah, I think I've got the pace to make it through. Not right now, of course, because I messed up my first hot lap by weaving down the start finish straight to test.
Test we're still alive.
Yeah.
How bizarre.
Well, my broadcast has died, but I'm not going to restart it, I don't think, because we seem to be having some sort of connection problem. Moving on with the news.
Yes.
Because we're all about the news.
Yeah, what's next on the F1 news?
Shall we talk about the continuing saga at Williams?
Yeah.
Because they promised an announcement in the first week of January, then they said the second week of January. They missed their own deadline again, and now it's being reported that they are in negotiations with Robert Kubica for him to take over a reserve driver seat. So our prediction about Sorokin getting the race seat is still correct. And interestingly, they have confirmed now that Sorokin was faster in testing. Because there's been lots of argument about that, and I know you and I have said Sorokin was faster in testing when you adjust for tyres and everything, but many people... And again, like I was saying the other week, man, Polish Twitter is super angry about all this, and I think that's why he's getting a reserve drive. Honestly, I do. I think they're taking him on as a reserve driver purely because they know the PR crapstorm. I think this decision was made start of December, and they've been stalling because they don't know what to do.
Yeah, and that makes sense actually, because if he gets, and if they do like a couple of outings. Maybe at this circuit actually, because a lot of Polish people would come here, and some of the European races. He can come out, do some mountains. That will boost ticket sales, get them some PR, and maybe if he picks up some pace and gets more comfortable, he might get like a guest outing at some point or something stupid if they really need to. But no, the fastest guy. I know it doesn't always happen like that, but the fastest guy that brings money to the team should get the drive, surely.
Yeah, because people are talking like it's only about the money, but I mean, to be honest, if you were making the choice, right, for who to put in that seat, the guy who's faster and brings in 15 million a season,
yeah, no brainer.
No brainer.
Especially if you're the only team that floats itself on the stock exchange, and well, it might not be the only one anymore, but they have to run as a business and turn a profit, so it matters more to them than to anyone else.
But you know, in the interim period, there's been a lot of news going around about this. Rumor was that Kubica had been putting together a sponsorship package to try and match what Sorokin was bringing to the table. I guess Rosberg's been pulling some strings behind the scenes and you know, trying everything in his power to get him into that seat. It hasn't worked out, but it does seem like it's going to end up in a reserve driver role. Now, given that historically Williams reserve drivers have very little to do, I think, again, this just has PR written all over it.
Susie Wolf.
I don't think you and I have the pace, actually, to get into Q3 on these tyres.
There is a bit of an offset, isn't there? The car feels awful on these.
Yeah.
I'm going for a second run just to see. But...
I've put I put way more wear on these tyres already than I wanted to. Yeah, I'm not confident about getting through. We're 7th and 8th, and the track gets so much faster at the end of Q2. Because if you remember last week, that's how I pipped you in quali.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that track evolution is a thing in this game, and it really is.
Christ.
Yeah, so I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's a good arrangement for both sides, because Kubica gets to stick around in a Formula One car. Oh, mate, did you spin?
Yeah. I'm really uncomfortable at this circuit. It's gonna be a car crash.
Literally a car crash.
Exactly. The more and more I think about it, the more I'm worried for Williams for 2018. In that I can't see where the next step forward is coming. I do hope. Oh, I've got to wait for you. Oh, little
First time ever.
I know, a little friendly wave. Toodles. Ooh. Oh, it's nice seeing your helmet actually up close.
It's my McLaren helmet, and I've never changed it.
It looked from that angle a bit like Thierry Boutsen.
Oh, that's good. It was unintentional, but it's good. No, I know what you mean, but Felipe Massa did actually come out and say that he's seen the Williams car for next year, and he thinks it's way more aggressive than anything they've done in recent years, and he thinks it could actually be quite lively.
Oh, good.
And given that he's got no reason to really blow sunshine up their arse, given how they've treated him, I take that comment quite seriously. Oh, you're back. You don't sound like you're underwater anymore.
Aha! You're getting clearer. I think maybe the connections are getting better.
So that car could be quite good, and I don't know. I like to think Sorokin could actually surprise a few people next year.
I think he'll be all right. They're just going to have to be lucky and capitalise on results. If the car is okay-ish, then Lance needs to pick it up a bit. Sorokin, I think, will be fine. I'm glad to hear that the car is going to be aggressive, because same old does not work for them, especially year on year. It's just diminishing returns. So, yeah, problems. And you're right. We are right on the bubble. And Ocon had a shocker, so he would knock us down one.
Yeah, I'm going out again on the red walls. We don't have much time, but maybe I can bump us up. So, I mean, if the car is good, and again, I think next year actually is probably the hardest one to predict in terms of where the cars are going to be.
Yeah. Which is exciting.
I'm really having trouble. I really am having trouble. Because Red Bull seem to have started to find their feet again, and McLaren are going to have a better engine. I'm not going to say a competitive engine, because I still think going from the 4th worst engine on the grid to the 3rd worst is hardly revelatory. But still, Red Bull managed to get some good results, so I don't see why McLaren couldn't. And then Williams have the Mercedes engine. If they can get the aero right, then you've got to say they'd have to work pretty hard to not be somewhat competitive. And then we forget Force India have the same power unit, and they are riding on the back of their best season ever.
And apparently
second top 4 finish in the constructors.
Yeah.
In fact, they've also just announced a big upgrade to their factory with the money.
Oh, nice.
Which makes me very happy. They are expanding their factory at Silverstone to ensure that the team can be housed under one roof.
Oh, cool.
Because at the moment they're working from 2 facilities, which I did not know.
I didn't actually.
Well, technically 3 facilities, because they also have some people on the ground, I believe, at the former Toyota wind tunnel in Cologne. So I guess this involves some wind tunnel construction, perhaps.
Oh, nice.
Or either that or wind tunnel improvements in Cologne. I forget the details specific to that press release, but still, great to see the money being ploughed back into the team and not taken by VJ to buy more private jets.
Yeah, well, I suppose he's got to get into the country to actually do the bank deposit to begin with, I guess. But no, that's good. That is good.
Start another arbitrary company called Kingfisher. There's some Kingfisher beer, Kingfisher supermarkets, Kingfisher Airlines. All of them broke now, of course. So I'm waiting to see what comes next. Kingfisher pensions. It'll be a long time before they notice you've taken that money, VJ. But still, I'm so happy for that team. They really have blown a lot of their critics away, including myself, actually, because 2 years ago I was saying that I didn't see how they could really build on what they've done, and they have, and they seem to have such a core fundamental understanding of the car they've built. And given that the formula is locked for another 2 seasons, if they can keep developing based on that understanding, then magic is going to happen.
Yeah, they completely agree.
Particularly with Perez and Ocon, that is such a fantastic lineup. Wow, we needed to go out again because I have just knocked like a second and change off my best time, and it's kept me 7th.
Yeah, I've been pushed down to 10th and I've bungled this lap, so I've got 1 more attempt, perhaps. Maybe 2 if I get across the line in time. We will see. No, I've got 1 attempt. This is it. And didn't they start building 2018 car quite early because they were so secure in 4th as well?
Yes, they did. So, again, we could be looking at a really strong season from them. Ferrari, it's hard to know what's going on with them because they seem to have the core correct and still manage to get up. So, who even knows what's going on over at Maranello? They could end up being competitive again next season. They could fall backwards. Renault, you've got to expect them to take some kind of step forward. And again, they've got a very strong driver lineup. Again, the only thing that I can think of for sure is that Haas are probably going to be taking a lot of pain.
I think so.
Haas and Toro Rosso have to be taking a lot of pain. I mean, I think Sauber are even going to take a step forward.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even not just on the basis of having a current spec Ferrari engine instead of one that's a year old. That's going to make a huge difference, even if the money from that deal doesn't immediately realise benefit to the car. And then they've got Charles Leclerc behind the wheel as well, who we both rate incredibly highly. Mm-hmm. Way better than the slick-haired German that he's replaced. So.
Mm-hmm. No, completely agree. Completely agree. And who was that dived up? Oh, it was Raikkonen going on the fastest. Yeah, for me, what's really exciting about 2018, I know some of the aerodynamic bits are changing, but for me, it's about the closing up of the field, which was already relatively close, but the closing of the gap basically between the lead 2/3 teams and the rest of the pack, because of the step forwards of McLaren, of Renault, of hopefully Red Bull, and if Williams can pull it together, that would be great. Oh!
What a twat!
Oh my god!
I just David Coultharded it.
Oh my god!
Oh, god damn.
That put you...
That was my David Coulthard moment.
That's put you out of quality, isn't it? Oh no!
Yeah, that's fine. It means I start 10th. That's okay. I can win from 10th. My finger slipped off the trigger, and I just went straight on into the wall.
But it was the curious little grassiest slide. That's it. Just oh dear. Oh mate, I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's been a year of screw-ups for me this year. Normally I've been quite good. Right. Let's set up the spectator menu, and I can take over the lion's share of the talking. I want to watch you. And I want telemetry on, lap data on, all that good stuff. Right. So, let's try and get this podcast back on track, shall we? Because I realised I was erring and umming and ahhing a lot.
That's all right, we will. But it's difficult to talk around this circuit because you're always in a corner.
That is true. So, what I'd like to move on into now is the big announcement from the last week, which is Daniel Kvyat showing up as a Ferrari test driver.
Mm.
And there's been a lot of sort of shock and surprise about that decision, which it doesn't surprise me at all. It's actually, if anything, quite a good fit, I thought.
Yeah?
Yeah, do you not think?
I was surprised.
He's a driver that had comparable one-lap pace to both Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz at different stages in his career. Red Bull seemed to think he had the one-lap pace. His problem was consistency, tying it together under pressure, and this is a role that removes that pressure, right? So if he can find a glimmer of pace like he once displayed, then he could actually be quite useful for testing the car.
Mm.
That's an honest assessment. I mean, it is basically the F1 equivalent of putting him in the corner with a colouring book, but I think that's what he needs. And if there's any way for him to get back into Formula 1 one way or another, this is arguably it. Because I know he was due to test a Formula E car, and he was in America testing a NASCAR and stuff, and you kind of know, right, once you've made that call, once you've done that, you're never coming back.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. So, yeah, I think this is actually the best possible move for his career. At the very least, he's going to get a big paycheck for a good many years, and it's worked nicely for Janae. He's in the company of guys like Janae and Kobayashi for a while, Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yeah.
There's no shame in it, I don't think. And it might just be what he needs to get his confidence back. A low pressure environment, safe position, no drama, no hassle. I think that's going to be quite a nice fit. So congratulations to him. Maybe I think the surprising thing was that it was Ferrari that took him on. But then again, Ferrari I kind of put in the same category as Williams as a team that makes odd driver decisions.
Yeah.
Like as much as I love Kimi Räikkönen, you've got to say keeping him on for the last 2 seasons has hardly been a no-brainer.
No, it's I guess for me it was less around the tester. I thought a tester drive would be where he'd end up. It was the Ferrari that was the call. I wonder if it was so that Vettel was just like, cool, I can't have him crashing into me in a Williams this year. Sign him up. Get him out. But I completely agree with what you're saying about it being the best move for his career and also the no-pressure environment, because I think with someone that's that mentally sensitive, that will let him thrive. I guess for me, it's the last person that kind of done the test move and came back and it worked for them was probably Olivier Panis, who similarly went up the grid for a test role and then came back midfield. And I wonder if that is a nice little thing so that he could then return to a midfield team maybe in a year or two's time, if he shows good pace.
I have to say, if he came with backing independent of Red Bull, I do think we'd be talking about him as a Williams driver.
Yeah?
Well, he was considered for the Williams drive anyway, and they invited him to do some simulator work. And I think if he had money, maybe not even as much as Sorokin, I think they would have taken a punt on him just because of his race experience. I honestly do, actually. I think De Resta was never going to get that seat.
Oh, no.
And in fact, I think a few teams who put as much stock in their reserve drivers less than Williams do. I think out of all the teams on the grid, Williams naughty. That was naughty of him, wasn't it?
I thought
down the inside into the pit lane. What a twat.
Showing his Azerbaijan rage.
Yeah, you are fifth, my friend. A 10th down on Ricciardo. You are the meat in a Red Bull sandwich.
Ooh, sexy. It's going better than what I thought it would. I'm alright on the super softs. It's the other tyres that I can't do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you and I are both going to be taking an extra stop, possibly.
Yeah,
because
I think so.
I'm not enjoying the soft tyres at all. At all. And recently, we've made the counter strategy work, which is unusual for us.
I know. I'm following the ways of the Esteban.
I know. I've been trying to finish that that little ebook I was putting together a few years ago. That I forgot about, and I thought, no, I should really polish that up and put it out there, right? And I stuck a paragraph in there before work one morning, talking about how I decided to go contra strategy. So the thing is to take the strategy that's on the table, disagree with it fundamentally, but then knowing that whenever I go contra strategy, it's wrong.
Yeah.
To then go contra to myself, and some would argue that's going back to the original strategy, but I would argue that actually it is contrary to both the original strategy and my strategy to go to the contra strategy, which is just coincidentally the same as the original strategy. I think it's a great insight into driver psychology there. Anyway, congrats to Daniel Kvyat. Moving onwards,
can I ask you a question about Kvyat before you quickly move on, actually?
Yes,
around pressure. Do you think... So say in an alternate world, he did get that Williams seat, and he's then considered the number one driver because Stroll is still the number two because he brings the dash, is still a learning curve, still walks around in diapers. Do you think he would thrive or flounder as a number one driver in a team that believed in him but comes with the extra pressure of being a number one driver?
That is an excellent question. Do you know, I think he could. And I think if there was a team that he could do it in, it would be Williams, actually. Who seem to be a lot easier on the drivers than they used to be. I mean, it'd be a good fit, particularly because I don't see Stroll as someone who would challenge him. And as a number one driver, really, I mean, the key metric is, are you beating your teammate?
Yeah.
And I think he could. I think he could have Stroll's number. At least in season one. I think Stroll might come good eventually. It really is hard to say. But yeah, I mean, at least within the terms of like a 2018 season, I think he could probably do it, because the assumption is the car's not going to be competitive, whether that's a true assumption or not. It certainly takes the pressure off going into the season. I mean, you got to remember, like when he was at Red Bull, the assumption was that the car was capable of winning, even when it wasn't. There's always, you know, internally at least, that expectation that you should get at least one win a season. And then he moved to Toro Rosso, and it wasn't necessarily that he was expected to be winning, but he was expected to finish races. And I think being put up against someone like Sainz, who most people would say is a better driver, that then puts pressure on him to overdrive, to try and surpass expectations, and he overdrove the car, he overdrove himself, and then he had all these problems. I think in a Williams, where no one's expecting him to perform a miracle, and Stroll is at best inconsistent, and that's quite charitable, I think he could probably come out of it smelling of roses, to be honest. And I think that's what would be happening if he had money that was independent of Red Bull. But I don't think Red Bull would pay for him to drive for Williams. Ooh, that was a nice little flick round there. Then if it had stayed on the track afterwards.
That's what I keep doing. I'm just too. I keep going wide.
You're having a high-speed spin, which is less embarrassing than my low-speed spin, because I keep spinning at low speed.
Oh, okay.
You're quite comfortable there in fifth. You've got close to 2/10 over Verstappen behind you.
Okay.
And you've got one lap left to run.
So what's next on our bounty?
Vettel's on pole with a bit of a stormer.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, moving on. F1 have announced that they are revamping the TV coverage, which I'm quite excited for. Actually, they're getting some. I believe his name's David Hill in to rework all the graphics to make them both more attractive and easier to read, or more meaningful. Which you and I have said that they need to rework the. If it was a video game, it would be called the UI. They need to rework that since they had the terrible qualifying format in 2014, where it was completely unintelligible. It just didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Oh. All the way round. No. I was rooting for you there, mate. I was rooting for you, not doing me. I was expecting you to sort of gracelessly, slowly roll nose first into the barrier and then just the wheels fall off. Oh, and again, this is going to be a lively race, I think, because I think we both have pace to tickle the podium at least. But we both seem to be quite error prone. It doesn't help that I had a pint before going live.
I've got a bottle of port for later. I was like, don't even try that now. Don't even try that now.
Scotland, grinning face with smiling eyes.
Ah, welcome. Thank you for joining from Scotland, Grossier J. New name. Welcome.
Hip, hip, hello.
Hello, hello. Let's get round and finish this quali off. Yeah, I go to f1carsetup.com and I play with other people's setups, and I'm starting to mix people's together, and I think I've put on a front wing layout and a suspension layout that don't go together, but they seem to be my fastest combo, but it just makes the car drive evenly, so never mind.
Wow, Fernando Alonso in 9th.
How did that happen? Loving this alternate world.
Who even knows? Who even knows?
Okay, back with the F1 news. Let's dive on. What was we doing before I interrupted?
So they seem to be alluding towards live streaming, which I thought they would. Yeah, well, or at least they called it a stream format. Now you don't know if they're so technologically out of touch that they're actually referring to streaming itself, or if they seem to believe that streaming is somehow different from TV, which fundamentally it really isn't. It's just production value. What are you doing on the old strategy?
I want to do neither of the things that are presented to me. I want to go super soft, soft. And it's telling me I can either go super soft, soft, or super soft, soft.
That's quite a mouthful.
It is.
Oh wow! There's like an optimal point to change when you change your strategy, but I think I've got it. So I am going super softs on the start through till lap 9,
right.
Changing to softs, and then coming in on lap 23 for another run on the super softs, and we're dry all race. I am curious though if I could make the mediums work.
I think that would be too slow because we're always in a corner.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I don't know. I'm doing nothing that it suggested to me. So I'm going 10,
historically,
20.
It's always worked so well for us.
I know. Shut up, Jeff. Oh, dear.
So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, that's fundamentally what I've wanted actually all along. Is for them to do their own in-house broadcasting. I think they'd make more money off it. I'd pay a subscription.
I would.
Pay a subscription.
I mean, we said this before, and I'd want the GP2 and Formula 2 and GP3 rolled in with it, and I'd watch those on demand or whatever as well. It'd be great. I think what really excites me, who was I saying this to? I was helping out Chimpy, who's one of our regulars, Callum Rochester on Twitter. He was doing a college project. He said, "Oh, can you come along and talk about F1 and I'll cut it into a podcast for my project?" And the thing we discussed was this. And I was saying, wouldn't it be a great way to try and make the halo look less terrible by putting the digital display like tachometer on there, so that it kind of, as they go up through the gears, it kind of goes round the halo, that kind of thing. or having the running order run around the halo, that kind of stuff, because then it means that it's part of it's part of the furniture, but it's part of the setup that your eyes are not necessarily looking at it going, why is there a thong in my face? Do you know what I mean?
I think what would be better would be to have a display on the inside that displays in real time offensive tweets written about the driver. So, you're driving around Monaco and someone's tweeted, Roman's hair makes him look like a paedophile or something. You know what Twitter's like.
Your cookbook
and then it just
shit.
pops up. And it just pops up at eye level in front of him, right? Because then you know who's truly got the mental strength to be an F1 champion.
This is you going into the tunnel, someone goes, boo. You're like,
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'd like to see that. On the inside, offensive tweets. On the outside, something else. I think there's legs in that idea.
Agree. I think there's
But they're talking about putting a digital ticker on the Halo, aren't they? Which is part of this improve the show format that they're trying to come up with, right? Which I'm going to get into in a bit more detail in a bit, because there's changes to the grid that are being proposed and all kinds of things. But it ties into this idea of them reworking the graphics packages and trying to make the televisual experience better. But again, you and I have always been a big fan of the idea of live streaming the races. I'd pay a subscription for that. You could always put highlights of the races up for free on YouTube to try and lure in more customers. So like maybe a day after the race, you put a short version out on YouTube. You can still monetize it with advertising, so they'd make money off the back of that. And I actually think they would make more money selling direct to fans than they do through selling to TV companies who then have to sell to advertisers. I genuinely believe that.
Well, because then it goes on to ticket prices and stuff like that. Because I remember you saying beforehand about how much of the revenue of ticket prices are basically to cover TV costings and bits and bobs like that. So it would have a knock-on effect for fans as well.
Yeah, of course it would. And, that's something else they're looking at as well, like what can be done to bring down the cost of attending a Grand Prix. And Pat Simmons has been consulted as part of this, I believe. There are some interesting ideas that are being talked about, and one of them is this moving to streaming as a means of reducing the various, there's lots of ancillary costs, right, with having lots of global broadcasters. And if you have an international broadcast team run by Formula One, so you don't have all these different journalistic outlets and so on to accommodate, to feed, to fly places and so on and so forth, and you don't have to throw all these incentives in as part of selling TV rights, then you can bring down the costs. And also, it's they want to bring down costs across the board, so they're trying to reduce the spends that teams have to bear to remain competitive. They're trying to reduce the circuit hosting fees, which I think will go a long way towards addressing the ticket pricing problems, because we know part of the reason that tickets are so expensive is because Bernie requires you to have a helipad and a gold toilet before he'll turn up. Now he's gone. We're about to have a massive accident, by the way.
I know.
Now Bernie's, gone from the sport, I think Liberty will be much more accommodating to circuits that actually provide good racing rather than good toilet facilities.
Agreed. Go away,
You and Bottas having a little bit of a lively rumble there. And if anyone's wondering, we go very quiet during lap 1, because if we don't,
carnage will happen.
It gets the heart rate up. I feel like an astronaut.
A harstronaut?
Yeah, a harstronaut, rather than just a harsehole.
Jeff approves of my start. Thank you. Oh, doesn't approve of that.
Shut up, Jeff. You mean literally nothing to me. I've never forgiven him for telling me to put slicks on in heavy rain at Interlagos. After that, we were done. We were through. Okay, I'm in a bit of clean air now because I lost some time to you and Bottas. So I will pick up the news baton again because something I was really looking forward to talking about, and this is a big topic for me, we could be on it for quite some time, is as part of all this reduce costs, improve the show and everything, that I think most fans are pleased Liberty are pursuing. Part of the idea now is to change the way the starting grid is arranged.
Right.
And there are two proposals.
Oh, God.
The first is, rather than staggering the grid, have first and second start alongside each other, third and fourth start alongside each other, and they believe that will improve the show. The other one is to go back to the starting grid method that they had, I believe, we must be going back decades now, where each row of the grid had 4 cars on it. And this would be 4 cars starting wheel to wheel, so no staggering again. And Pat Simmons was on Twitter asking, I wonder how that would be received. I wonder what would happen if we had a front row with 4 cars on it. And I tweeted, I can tell you exactly what would happen, Pat. Singapore 2017, every Grand Prix. Just a massive accident, a huge one, every time.
Isn't that what they want for views?
What else would happen would be qualifying becomes completely pointless to watch.
Yeah. And I tell you what, that would scrap any ideas of anyone saying that there's a point for pole position, because why would you go for pole position if you're going to start alongside on 4th and coast that round, because it doesn't really matter.
Well, to be honest, it goes beyond that because it scraps pole position.
Well, yeah, exactly. There is no such thing, is there? A point for the front row, everyone. Oh, good. Half the field are off the mark. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, that's it. Like, half the field will be on the front 2 rows of the grid. And when you think about, particularly after a formula change, if you think about the performance disparity between the cars that would occupy those grid positions, you have to say it's just got bad idea written all over it, particularly with the cars being so wide. I can't think of many tracks that actually have the width capacity.
You couldn't do 4 at the row at Monaco, could you?
No, of course you couldn't. So I'm sure the FIA and Liberty are delighted to be paying Pat Simmons however many million a year to come up with harebrained ideas like that aren't even workable, but good job, Pat.
Well done. Next up, sprinkler systems. And I tell you what as well, with a 20-car grid, having 5 rows of cars would make that grid look really small.
Yes, it would. It really would. I don't think that's what we need right now either. I've been looking back like at some historic seasons and checking out some facts on Wikipedia and stuff, you know, like toilet time. And, you know, you forget that sometimes you go back to the early 90s and there were like 28, 30 car potential grids. I mean, obviously not all of them got to run, but I mean, you forget how diverse the grid used to be.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't think we need to be implementing changes to the format of Formula One that just highlight exactly how bereft of entries the series has become. Particularly because you'd only get about 4 cars coming out of the end of turn 1 anyway, still running.
Yeah, I can't see that working very well. I mean, to me that strikes of, oh, doesn't it look amazing in Indy when you've got 3 cars lined up side by side going around doing a little salute? Well, there's 33 of those cars on the grid. That's why it looks amazing to begin with. But also, doesn't that breed a nice lap 1 caution? Doesn't that breed a nice lap 1 safety car? Off strategy, people being retired because we know people have said that they miss retirements, but then automatically they don't want reliability to change how a season works out. Well, that's stupid. It's also we want to be economical, but we don't want grid penalties. But actually, people don't necessarily mind the grid penalties for causing a bit of a weird race. So it negates that, but still keeps grid penalties and keeps F1 economical. So I can kind of see some of the stuff. Oh, Brotas and Ricciardo, baby. But
you guys are getting so much more speed out of the corners than I am. I catch up to you on the straights, but then you're just gone by the time we come out the other end of the corner.
I'm on 9.8 wings.
Oh, that'll be why then.
Why? Do you know what your wings were?
7-7, I think, or 6-7.
Oh wow, that is quite a bit of difference actually. You are definitely faster though.
Yeah, but I'm terrified to come anywhere near your death pie. I mean, look at the fucking date here.
Brotas is through now, so he's pulling away. Oh, I've done that wrong.
Oh, I should have capitalised on that.
Oh, you can capitalise on that.
What happened there?
I locked up and thought I was going to smack into the back of Ricardo.
Well, you're a better man than me. I'd have just hit him. So this is one of those like news items that has been a big part of my recent sort of Twitter ramblings about we have bigger fish to fry, right? Same as with the digital display on the Halo. But if you get me thinking, if we do have bigger fish to fry, what would we consider to be the biggest fish? Now, for me, I don't think any of the big fish are actually that easy to fry, and that metaphor kind of falls apart when you stick with it this long. Because, you know, it seems to me that they're talking about stuff like let's stream the races and let's put lights on the Halo because everyone hates the Halo and so on. I think they're talking about that stuff because the real problems are actually really difficult to fix.
Yeah.
Because, you know, for me, I'd like to see more engine suppliers. I'd like to see more teams on the grid. I'd like to see bigger grids. I'd like to see cheaper races with better attendance. I'd like to see races that were not necessarily everyone bunched up, but I would like to see the formula we've got now, which has done a lot of things right. I'd like to see the best of it expanded. So, you know, you can't get rid of the eco engines. You just can't, because the engine manufacturers don't give a crap about anything else, and they won't enter the sport unless you appeal to that part of what they believe, right?
No.
Because they need to justify the spending to their boards. The board members want to know how can we monetize off the back of the Formula 1 program. They don't enter Formula 1 unless you are like a high-performance car manufacturer like McLaren is now, or Ferrari have always been. You don't enter just for the prestige of the sport aiding car sales. Usually it's a technological testbed, right?
Yeah.
So if you are having to move road cars towards electric or hybrid technology, and then Formula 1 goes back to V10s, you're not going to be spending millions a year on developing a V10 engine for Formula 1 because it doesn't make any sense. So
No,
that has to happen, but
HEV.
I don't see why we couldn't keep upping the power of them. Like, just because they're fuel efficient and eco-friendly doesn't mean they have to be dull.
No, I agree with that. Especially when you've got Formula E making the claim that by 2040 they will be the only leading motorsport series left.
Which I think there's some truth to that.
Yeah. And so, and you're right, because some of the bigger questions are, where does F1 see itself on that kind of spectrum in an increasingly conscious world of fossil fuels and all of that kind of stuff? What does it mean to be Formula 1, and how can you justify being that in a world that is so busy to be offended? Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so,
I mean, it's not even just that. It's not like F1 really cares about the opinions of you know, eco warriors. And to be fair, like, I'm not against electric technology or anything like that. I think it's actually a really great idea. But, you know, the people who are sort of hardcore anti-motorsport, anti-pollution, anti-carbon and so on, the people who are sort of like passionate activists about it, Formula 1 doesn't care about them.
no,
Because,
and they'd never
you know,
be appeased anyway, would they?
And for a large part, they don't care about F1 either. You know, they're in their dinghies harassing Shell oil tankers and stuff in the Gulf of Mexico. You know, they've got bigger fish to fry as well, right? I mean, using too many sets of Pirellis in a weekend is hardly going to cause them to wake up in the night screaming.
Well, it depends if it's a super hard. But yeah, I don't mean.
Yeah, but I mean, for me at least, I think there's an argument to be made that this is all sort of manufacturer driven, and if F1 had been smart, they would have got onto the electric bandwagon sooner. Now, I'm not suggesting that they should have taken F1 all electric because the time wasn't right, and I think Formula E, the first 2 seasons demonstrated that. Mm-hmm. I'm actually quite a fan of Formula E. I think the racing is actually quite good, and the cars are improving year on year. It's getting better and better. The ticket pricing is superb.
Yep.
And it's actually quite a nice event to attend. Actually, I've been to 2 Formula E Prix now, and I would rate them quite highly to anybody. The problem that Formula 1 faces is that now Formula E has taken that risk. And, you know, right now, Formula E is not particularly attractive to top-level drivers. It tends to be like the retirement pasture where, you know, F1 rejects and retirees go to see out the last of their careers.
Reminds me of A1GP.
Yeah, exactly. I think that will increasingly begin to change, and Formula 1 has, really through no fault of its own, kind of written itself into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as we've said before now, where does it go? It can't go all electric because Formula E's already gone electric, and the manufacturers are already jumping into Formula E, which we said they would.
Yeah.
You know, we were saying 2014 that, you know, give it 3-4 years and you'll get the big manufacturers entering Formula E, and Ferrari are talking about an entry, Jaguar have already entered, Renault have been in there since the start, Audi have been dipping their toes and are now in there officially, BMW are entering. It's getting serious, right? And there's going to become, at some stage, a crossover point where Formula E becomes the new Formula 1, unless Formula 1 can find a way to remain relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have 2 options. The first is hybrid, which is what they're doing now, but I don't think they've proven capable of getting the hybrid formula right for the sport and its fans. What I think could work quite nicely in the future is for them to go hydrogen fuel cell.
Oh, right.
Ferrari said that Formula isn't mature enough yet.
No, I agree it isn't, but it will be eventually, and you've got to think long term, right? Because that's how the manufacturers think.
Yeah.
You don't enter Formula 1. I mean, that's why Aston are waiting to enter, right? They know they want to enter Formula 1. They're probably going to partner with another manufacturer like Cosworth and do a joint engine supply. But it's silly for them to enter now when the formula is changing for 2021. So they're waiting. And when they enter, they'll do the same thing Honda have done, which is they'll commit for a period of time. They'll set a budget for maybe 8 years, 10 years,
mm-hmm.
which will come up for renewal at a certain point. And, you know, that's why Honda haven't disappeared, right?
Yep.
I know now they've got Toro Rosso. They would have been forced to disappear if Toro Rosso hadn't signed them. But even though they are embarrassing themselves, they've already spent the money.
Yep.
They have committed to Formula 1 for 10 years, so they will produce engines for 10 years. And, you know, even though they are embarrassing themselves, they will be learning a lot for their road cars, so that will be how, you know, the board will be on some level satisfied, I think, that they've, if not been able to win at a Formula 1 level of competition, they are at least at the cutting edge of hybrid technology.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do think hydrogen fuel cell technology is where Formula 1 should... Oh, thanks for that, Palmer. That should be where they go in the end, because to me that's kind of the bridging point, right? Because it has all the benefits of electric. The car will only emit... learn to speak English, man. The car will only give out water from the engine,
mm-hmm.
so it's just steam that comes out the back. And it's got all the benefits of a modern combustion engine, in that you can fill up and go, you don't have to charge. It remains to be seen which technology is going to ultimately win out, because, you know, the manufacturers of battery-powered cars are making such big gains right now. And Formula E is playing a role in that, because the battery technology that is it McLaren or Williams that are building the batteries
Williams.
for Formula E? Yeah, I mean, the work they're doing is yielding results, and they're improving year on year, and eventually the battery is going to be opened up for competition, right? And you're going to have all these teams trying to perfect battery technology. Then you've got teams on the people on the outside of motorsport, you know, companies like Tesla who are committed to getting stuff like long distance trucking to go electric. So they've already been working on long distance fast charge batteries. So I'm not saying that hydrogen is necessarily going to ultimately prove to be the technology that the car manufacturers throw their weight behind en masse, but it's certainly something that lends itself quite well to Formula One, because Formula One can't go all battery electric, because by the time they make that switch, Formula E will already have established itself as the motorsport leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's quite a long wall of text I've just read out, but I think it provides a pretty decent helicopter view.
And it makes sense because Formula E is positioned as Formula E for Formula Electric. Formula One can't then come along going like, where are the pinnacles? Because it's not even named after it, and it's not even the first one to come across, so it's just Formula. Do you know what I mean? So it's just...
Yeah, precisely.
The whole thing is a branding and just a nightmare, so no. And it's signalling of more bigger fish to fry. I think one of the things that Liberty are doing well, that is a big fish that needs to fry if they're going to build their audience, is to try and level the bar of understanding. I know they keep bringing in like the videos that they put out on like this is what tyres do and this, that and the other. I think a lot of that is very, very good, but I wished that they didn't have to explain such really weird, ridiculous moves that Formula One does to make itself more complicated, and then spend its time explaining it to a casual audience to try and lower the bar, I guess. I don't know. I feel like they're having to prescribe medicine for their own symptoms that they're causing themselves.
Well, I mean, this is a conversation we've had before, right? That a lot of problems Formula One has are a dichotomy that can't be resolved because there's two competing interests that can never mutually be resolved. Because you've got on one hand the teams themselves who are now spending such ridiculous amounts of money it's killing the sport very slowly. But then you also have the pressure from fans and ancillary partners and engine companies to remain the pinnacle of motorsport technology. Wow, Ricciardo's come out on mediums.
So's Ocon.
So a lot of one-stopping going on. And you have this dichotomy between the fans now are isolated a little bit from the skills of the drivers because you don't appreciate how many buttons they're pressing and dials they're twisting. You just see how they're driving, and most people miss the days of, cars that looked difficult to drive but were driven with finesse. And the cars today don't... I think, to be fair, I think the 2017 Formula does actually go some way towards going back to that. But
yeah.
Again, the argument for simple, cheap-to-produce cars that are entertaining to watch and fun to drive and entertaining to watch being driven is completely up against the philosophy of the manufacturers who want to perfect a rather complicated technology to remain relevant in their respective marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's the same thing as well. It's like the DRS argument. There's people who say F1's crap if there's no overtaking, and then there's people who say DRS ruins Formula One because overtaking doesn't mean anything anymore. No one overtakes on merit. And you think, well, that can never truly be resolved. Like, that problem is never, ever going away. Because either you have systems like DRS where the cars can overtake, and as we said before, right, if a lot of overtaking is happening in Formula One, then either you've got a system that is making overtaking too easy, like DRS, or you have a driver being overtaken who is not good enough for Formula One.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about occasionally being overtaken competitively. I'm talking about like consistent races where there's constant overtaking, because especially with the cars being this wide, if you are such a poor defensive driver that people are getting by you left, right and centre, then you shouldn't be in Formula 1. And that's why...
Get rid of DRS, then? DRS isn't working well at the moment anyway.
I agree. Something about the current changes to the formula has killed DRS a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah. Which I don't mind. I think DRS has its place, potentially. I wished it wasn't a thing. I think it cheapened overtakes, and I think they've now noticed that and pulled it back. I think the issue for me is that some circuits DRS is still overpowered, some it's underpowered. It feels too gimmicky still for me. Yeah, I don't know. No, I'd be quite happy to say bye bye to that. But again, it's about educating people and saying to people that if you're coming to watch Formula One, you're coming to appreciate X, Y, and Z, and Z may be that these. Oh Christ, what was that, Smithy? That Z is overtakes are not going to be a mile a minute, but when you see it, my God, they're going to be really hard-earned, amazing overtakes that you can truly enjoy and see and understand the prowess and finesse that was involved in it, and that will attract a certain audience. And I think that's what F1 needs to do. It needs to know who it is and who it wants to attract.
Exactly. It can't be all things to all men, right? And
no.
It comes back to what we were saying at the start of the episode about the way American motorsport tends to be geared more towards the show, right? If you're someone who desperately needs constant overtaking, then I think you're going to find a home in IndyCar.
NASCAR.
Yeah, for me, Formula One is I always call it the complete championship, right? Because not all things are equal, and you don't just have to. The driver doesn't just have to get it right; the whole team has to get it right. The engine manufacturer has to get it right. The aero team has to get it right. The car has to be built correctly, has to be run correctly, week in, week out. You have to know how to set it up. When you win, it's all these things coming together.
Yeah.
And it's about the right car with the right driver at the right time, done correctly. And sure enough, it sometimes leads to long periods where you could argue the competition is boring. I mean, I'm sick and tired now of seeing Mercedes on top step, but I wouldn't for a minute suggest they don't deserve to be there.
No.
Because they do. They've done fantastic work, and the fact that engine has so much more to give than even the Ferrari has when it needs to is testament to the fact they've done a fantastic job. And Red Bull were doing an amazing job during the period of Vettel domination. It was boring as all balls to watch sometimes. I remember like being sick to my back teeth of him. I think it was Singapore 2013.
I agree with that about Merck.
Where he just rode off into the sunset, and that race was never open for debate. I don't think I've seen a drive that dominant in quite some time, and by the end of the race, the margin between him and the guy in second was ridiculous. But they deserved it, and so I don't know. I think it's a chess checkers kind of thing.
I think there's room for both types of motorsport, and they appeal to different people. And it's Formula One just needs to know what it is, but then line itself up so that all its ducks in the row to then promote that type of racing, that type of sport, and go for it in that controlled way and environment, instead of trying to. It's all about let's put more reach out, let's grow. Sort yourself out first and make sure that you're looking after what you've already got. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
To me, if they were smart, what they'd do is, instead of suggesting that F1 move to a sprint format, they'd have a support series that has a sprint format, run it on TV just before qualifying on a Saturday.
Yeah.
And use that as a springboard, right? Because people who really don't care for the marathon, not a sprint format of Formula One, maybe they won't watch. That's fine, but you're still getting their viewership for that that's 1 or 2 sprint races prior to qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly if you're in charge of the broadcast and you're not relying on TV syndication anymore, where they have a schedule to stick to. I don't see a reason why you couldn't do that. And it could be a root drug to getting into Formula One. Because I mean, I've always loved Formula One, but I think it wasn't until my 20s where I was really able to appreciate it on the level I do today. I think I appreciated something different about it when I was younger, but as I've got older, I think I appreciate much more being able to follow the race as very much like a chess game.
Yeah.
Where if you don't appreciate the significance of someone pitting on lap 10 and changing to a harder compound of tyre, if you don't appreciate the true significance, like over a race distance. Because I mean, I still talk to people who have been F1 fans 15 years or so, who will sometimes live text during the races, right? And someone comes in for an early stop, switches to a hard compound, and they'll text me and say, well, that guy's out of the race now. Because they have this assumption that if you're not on the softest, fastest tyre, then you're not going to be pushing for overtakes, you're not going to be competitive with the cars around you, and you think, well, again, I think you're coming at the sport all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really, it could be a bad move, but it could also be a very clever move. Or people who were texting me during this year's Singapore Grand Prix where Kevin Magnussen switched to dry tyres first.
Yeah.
And the way that sort of, it resulted in a lot of very divergent opinion, actually, between people who thought it was a smart move and people who thought it was the stupidest possible thing he could have done. Wow, Bottas is flying, and I can't seem to get away from Ricciardo. So I think the best I can hope for in terms of finish is 6th.
There's a 5-second gap. I'm in 7th, and there's 5 seconds back to Perez, who I think has got I don't know where Verstappen pitted or where he is actually. But he was behind Perez when we both pitted. But I'm assuming
he must still be behind him because he can't be ahead of Bottas.
Okay, so I bet he's gone on to mediums as well then. Are you pitting this lap?
Don't think so.
Okay, cool.
I'm on the softs.
Ah, okay, right. I'll pit this lap then.
That's why Bottas has got a 15-second lead over me, because he's on a softer compound, and the differential in speed between compounds at this track seems really huge today. All I care about is keeping Ricciardo behind me. Oh, Bottas has pitted.
Yes, he's gone on to
softs. I've got Raikkonen ahead of me on mediums.
Verstappen's on mediums. He's just gone past.
Interesting stratagems going on.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's me on the softs now, hopefully to the end.
So, getting back onto the news train, because we've still got a lot of news to cover.
Yeah.
McLaren have announced they're going to have a radical new look this year.
Ooh.
And I don't know what that means.
Well, do you remember last time where they said...
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm scared of, right? And a lot of people are saying, well, they're just going to go all papaya orange, and I don't think they will. I don't. I was having a great discussion on Sean Bull actually liked my tweet.
Ooh.
The livery designer. Because I pointed out that papaya orange, in particular, but all oranges, actually look garbage on TV.
Yeah.
In terms of showing off the sponsors. Yep. And if you want evidence of that, look at the papaya orange McLarens in testing, like the ones around 2006, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sponsors are barely visible, and some people made the argument, well, they're not really supposed to be visible because it's just testing, and well, why stick them on there then?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's too bright, and unless you've got sponsors that are all dark, I guess you are doomed essentially to not be able to see your sponsor. So no, you're right.
Well, I mean, that's why they got rid of it originally. I remember reading it in an article actually where they said, well, it didn't test well on cameras, and it's also, if you remember the Orange Arrows cars,
yep.
It's why they were quite heavily black in places to kind of offset it, and the only way it works is the way McLaren have done it this year. it only works the way McLaren did it this year, which is you go for a darker shade of orange, like a richer shade of orange, and you offset it with black.
Yeah.
Now, they gave a sneaky glimpse of the new team uniforms.
I've not seen those.
Yeah, now, you don't actually see the whole garment, you just see the McLaren logo, the speed mark as they call it, on around the nipple area. And it was corrugated silver.
Oh.
And people were joking it looked like a Star Trek uniform, which it did. So if you imagine, like, we're talking bright silver, like shiny silver, polished silver, and it's like Toblerone.
Oh.
So it's textured, right? If you ran your fingernail down it, it would rasp.
Ah.
So it's kind of embossed, and that was all they showed, but it was on a grey background. So I've got to be honest with you, I'm not expecting this radical new look to be particularly radical.
It's
and
Ron
we know
Radical.
that they've signed some new sponsors, and Zach Brown has said, well, I wanted a title sponsor, but the age of the title sponsor is over, but what we do have now is a premium partner. They haven't announced who this premium partner is, but you've got to bet that's influenced the design somewhat. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say I would be surprised if Papaya Yellow came back. Papaya Orange even.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying 100% definitely it's not happening, but again, would be surprised.
Unless...
Wolfpack is flying.
I want... Unless their title sponsor is a high-vis jacket. That could be about the only other thing that I could think of that would get that kind of thing out. Well, yeah, because their age of a title sponsor is over because they're not prepared to lower their price, and I kind of get their point, to be fair. Oh Christ, I was all the wrong buttons there. So yeah, it's interesting. And the last time they'd done that, they just came out of a slightly different shade of silver. So I don't expect anything more.
What if their title sponsor was Honda?
Amazing.
I'd love that.
That would keep me...
I'm curious to see actually if Toro Rosso changed their new look.
Oh yeah.
With the Honda tie-up, because that was a car that I loved it when they launched it. I loved the new look of the Toro Rosso at first, but then over the year I gradually came to really dislike it.
I got bored of it, and I was really surprised because it was probably my favourite looking car at launch. Followed maybe by the Sauber, because I quite liked that at the time. But you're right, it just kind of blended into boredom, and I don't know if that's just because I was getting bored of the team and it just exploding everywhere, and it was just having a dire season, and that kind of affected it. But yeah, it didn't feel. It just looked like a mess by the end of it.
It did, and I think part of the problem was it's the same thing that Force India went through, where there was this disconnect between the car and the people servicing it. Because if you looked into the Toro Rosso pits, you had the cars with this like strikingly bold new look, and then all the mechanics were dressed in the uniforms from the old livery. And they didn't fix that all season.
What a weird thing to skip money on.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I always used to, particularly the early Toro Rossos, like the first few, maybe the first 4 of them, I always hated the livery.
Yeah, because
like graffiti style. It was stupid.
The ball didn't fit properly, did it?
No, it looked really stupid. But then towards like the end of that period of liveries, I have to say, the sort of the really dark, almost blackish blue, combined with gold and red, I really came to like that.
Yeah.
It started to work together. But I did like the bold new look of the Toro Rosso, but I think it's time to get rid of it already. Something about it was wrong. I think there's also a problem these days with overly mirrored cars. Because you remember, you and I famously hated the 2014 McLaren because it was just a driving mirror.
I always find it hard to work out the difference between Toro Rosso and Red Bull.
I think there were periods actually where I think you're right. In certain light conditions,
Yeah.
they were too similar. And I appreciate the effort they took to try and redefine how the Toro Rosso looked and everything. But I don't know. I think a black and silver look could work quite nicely for them.
Yeah. I wonder what other Red Bull products there are that have got slightly different tinges and tones on stuff. Because Red Bull was going towards that kind of purpley look for a little while, and then it seemed to become that's what Toro Rosso are now pushing towards, as Red Bull pull away from it. I do wonder how much of a look the Aston Martin will look on the Red Bull as well, to kind of differentiate the two.
Yeah, I've seen some concept liveries from people like Sean Bull and the people who rip off Sean Bull.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been some that have been like with flashes of British Racing Green on, or all British Racing Green. Some of them look quite good, some look truly fucking awful. Like trying to marry the current Red Bull livery with like patches of British Racing Green. I mean, it was horrible. It looked like a clown car. To be honest, I think the Red Bull team itself could do with a refresh. I think the Haas livery is uninspired.
Oh, I hate the Haas livery, sorry.
And actually, like at the start of the year, I wasn't a huge fan of the Force India, but it has really grown on me, and it's quite a handsome car now. I saw some pictures of it at the Autosport International event that's going on as we speak, and particularly under studio lighting, it's a very handsome car.
Oh yes.
And given at the start of the year it was fat and had an ugly nose, I don't think that helped it. But what they've done to it since, I quite like it actually.
Yeah. Big
and
fan
then,
of
you know,
the livery.
The Williams Martini livery, which you and I absolutely loved when it first debuted, that's also become really sort of meh, hasn't it?
No, I'm still liking the livery. I think it's the team that's around it that's gone there for me. It's, but for me, every time I look at that livery, I just think of all the different marketing opportunities that they have not done with it, that we keep coming up with on this podcast, that just make me sad and annoyed. So, yeah, that's always a bit of a shame.
Yeah, but the Williams livery need to change.
Oh, Chimpy agrees with you.
Well,
I think for me, the more other liveries stop being grey or blue, or we went through that period where there was loads of red cars on the grid, then the Williams being all white with just that little motif becomes more defined and distinctive. At the moment, there's too much grey and white and stuff like that, so it doesn't stick out as a individual thing. But there's even with that little motif of the Martini logo, there's so many different, more inspired things you could do with that than just having like a little singular stripe of it. They could go proper. Do you remember when Manor in the 2016 season, they used to produce the most amazing retro posters for every race using the Manor colours? I want to see them go down that look with the Martini stuff, because that would look really good if they like harked back to the old 50s and 60s type stuff.
See, I think, and again, this is going back to Fantasyland, but as you and I said, Williams in its current format was made for an Aston Martin engine deal, Jenson Button as lead driver, play on the James Bond Aston Martin Mercedes Aston Martin Martini, British connection. Yeah. And they could do a very handsome car in British Racing Green with a colour muted Martini logo, or a silver Martini logo. I think that could look very handsome, and the marketing writes itself. But they'll never do it. Of course they won't.
No. We can but dream, though.
We can only do that, unfortunately. Moving on down the news list, because by God, we're struggling to get it all in.
She said.
Let us talk.
Sorry.
Let us talk once more about McLaren. Quite a lot of McLaren news this week. Some of it not particularly interesting, such as the fact that Ron Dennis hosted a party recently for people he's worked with down the years at McLaren.
How many turned up?
With a private Cirque du Soleil performance.
What?
And apparently it was very enjoyable and quite well attended.
Oh.
And the only reason I mention it, because it's not really F1 news, is we know that he didn't want to be out when he was out. We know he's been desperately clinging to his shares. It does strike me a little bit as like trying to round up his allies for another run at taking over McLaren. Because he wanted to buy it back, didn't he? He wanted to buy it up. And the shareholders kind of beat him off with a stick.
Soleil GP?
Yeah, I don't know, he just seems desperate to get back in. He's outside the door with a crowbar. And just for him to sort of casually throw a party and invite significant figures from McLaren that he's still talking to, plus people that have money, plus people who have historically worked with him at McLaren, it just seems a little odd.
Although...
So we could be looking at Ron 2, Electric Boogaloo, before too long.
Oh, yes. Dennis GP would do me just fine. I'd love to see that. I'd also love, now that you've put that image in my head, I would love a Cockney gangster movie with Ron Dennis and a crowbar. Vinnie Jones, Ron Dennis, smashing down Zach Brown's door. Yes. Ron's 11. But if it's Ron's 11, it would be Ron's 11.0, and then there'd be some kind of like 90-degree angle on the cover or something, because, you know...
Yeah, Ron's Project 11.0.
Yeah.
Other McLaren news. They have been speaking again about... particularly about Fernando Alonso, actually, and their attempts to crack America. Zach Brown has been pretty open, actually, about the fact that he himself is American, of course, and that he wants to take McLaren in an American-ish direction, and he thinks that Fernando Alonso is proving the best tool for doing that. And it seems like a lot of commentators agree. I mean, he's certainly... McLaren and Alonso seem to enjoy much greater American fan backing than Haas and Romain Grosjean do. And the fact, you know, he's running Daytona. I think he'll probably have another pop at Indy. Maybe not this year, but I could see it happening.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He'll come back. And he was so lapped up and loved in that event. And
yes, he was.
And I think the difference was that he approached it with humility, whereas Gene Haas has gone around saying that no one's good enough for him. And what's not to love about being humility and involving about the American dream? So they've gone about it the right way, and so I can completely see why America would take to Fernando Alonso.
Oh, I mean, he ran a good race as well, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
So it seems to be that they're getting back on the right track, and that's encouraging. I think we need a McLaren that is competitive. I think they've been in the doldrums for far too long, and if they can't seem to get out of it with the switch to Renault, I would start to be very worried that they're entering a Williams period of serious decline.
Yeah.
Because Williams have never really recovered. I mean... I still find it terrifying to think that Williams has not been truly, consistently competitive since 2001.
Shocking, really, isn't it?
Yeah, which is the best part of 20 years ago. I mean, that's insane to me.
Scary.
Now, I would rate this as well as a particularly significant season for Stoffel Van Dorn, because all going well, he's going to be up against some of his peers.
Yeah.
Particularly Ocon and Verstappen. And I think it's going to be a make or break season for him, actually. I mean, Alonso is Alonso, and he'll be around for as long as he's around. And then, I mean, to be fair, he can't have too many years left in Formula One, to be quite frank. He's going to inherit the position as oldest driver once Kimi Raikkonen's gone. So, you know, maybe he's got 2-3 seasons left in him. I don't think he's going to pick up another championship. I think that's a terrible injustice, but I don't see it happening. So McLaren being the springboard for him to run in these other significant motorsport events, I think is a mutually beneficial arrangement. I think it's going to pay dividends for both sides. And now the pressure really within that team is going to fall on Stoffel to prove that he can step into Alonso's shoes and take over. And I'm still not entirely convinced he's got the chops for it. And with Lando Norris snapping at his heels...
Yeah, he's got a Lando problem. I completely agree. The problem for Stoffel the Waffle is... he's all of his Instagram posts have got Pierre Gasly in, so I'm waiting for a Stoffel, literally a Stoffel waffle. So where he starts taking on all of the bad, weird, and wonderful things that Gasly starts saying. Unless Stoffel's actually just telling Gasly, say those things, lol, and then that would make me like him more. But they're treating Lando Norris like Hamilton 2, the revenge, and immediately.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but before you carry on, they've already got him on lockdown as well. They've said they will not allow him to drive for another Formula One team, and his contract is pretty watertight, I believe.
Yeah.
But continue.
No, and it's those kind of things that just make me think, right, they've spotted their next British racer to be with British McLaren, with potentially in the long-term future a British manufacturer, if they can get it, with Aston Martin, perhaps. I don't know. Let's just throw everyone at Aston Martin for now, or I don't know. There it goes, McLaren, Maserati.
I still think they'll build their own engine. I don't think it makes sense for Aston to power a competitor in the supercar market. But
no.
I could see McLaren building their own engine eventually because they're already building cars, so it makes sense.
That makes sense. What was I going to say?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is now is when does Alonso move over? Because he doesn't seem... A few years ago I would have said he won't stick around much longer, but if the Renault-powered McLaren is competitive, I think he'll still see out another 2-3 years, and then Stoffel has to cling on by his fingernails because he needs that other seat to be vacant so that Lando doesn't push him out. And you might think, well, it's not going to happen because they've only just signed Stoffel to a race seat, but Kevin Magnussen.
Sergio Perez.
Yeah.
They've done several of these types of things before.
McLaren on their own engine for 2021.
Yeah.
I mean, historically it never works out very well, but I could see them attempting it.
Yeah. I think for me, because Stoffel, I think, has got more options than McLaren if he does well. I think he will step up. I don't think he is going to be the wonder kid that everyone had built him up coming in before. But I think he will be a relatively long-termish Hulkenberg-like driver. I can see.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. I see him as like a Hulkenberg Frentzen sort of figure.
Yeah. He'll be there and thereabouts, put in some really great performances, maybe get into an extreme top team and not really convert particularly well, maybe. I don't know. That might be taking it a step too far. But, I think he'll be fine. But I think Alonso will stick around 3 years and be out.
Yeah. But to be honest, he is in a generally good position anyway because a surprising number of seats are actually available for 2019.
Yeah. Because of how static it is.
2018's driver market wasn't as liquid as you might think.
No.
Neither was 2017's until Rosberg retired. You have a 2019 that is very up in the air, and a lot of teams actually have 2 seats up for negotiation.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I suppose, in a sense, it's a good time to have Lando Norris take your job, because there are seats out there available.
Yeah. And I think Lando Norris... It depends. I don't know... I mean, McLaren aren't without without sticking a relative young guy in, because they don't have Hamilton, obviously. But Lando is still, for me, 2 years away from being in Formula One. If you look at how other trends of F1 drivers have kind of happened of late. So Stoffel's got the time. And that would tie up nicely if they bring him in early for 2019. Yeah, we'll see.
I agree. I never thought these words would ever leave my lips, but I'm actually surprised I didn't win. I think this is the first time I've run Hungary and not won it.
Boo. Well, you was 10th on the grid, mate. That was a bit of a push-up.
I did all right, but to be honest, I never had the pace to run with Bottas. I mean, I was alongside him at one point, and he's finished the race, must be like 30 seconds clear of me.
Crikey.
Just a different league. But what's funny is, on the same difficulty, in fact, harder difficulty, in career mode, I won in a McLaren. From like 8th on the grid.
I wonder if that shows...
No, actually, that was last on the grid. Because that was the one I screenshotted, I remember.
Your fastest lap was great.
It was the fastest lap, apart from Bottas. Yeah, Bottas. He was flying, though, Bottas. He was consistently pounding round. Let me see if I can see his lap times. Yeah, I mean, yeah, his laps were, like that stint from lap 12 onwards, where he's in like the mid-20s. Yeah, incredible. So, good job from Bottas there.
Bottas! You'll have to do some good jobs in 2018.
Yeah, I think his day's done, to be honest. I think he's in a Damon Hill kind of scenario where he's fucked whatever he does, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
There's too many good drivers waiting to take that job. And Mercedes have said, we're going to find Pascal Wehrlein a job. That was in the news this week.
That be back at DTM?
Think, were they saying that while looking sideways at Bottas? Although to be honest, I see them putting Ocon in that seat if there's any justice.
Yeah. I think Ocon will go there, and then maybe they'll stick Pascal in for 2019 at Force India, especially if Perez ends up in a Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm so excited about next season in terms of where the cars are going to be, and then how that ties into the 2019 driver market, because that is the most exciting driver market I think we've had in a very, very long time. Because you've got Force India, it will be all changed there. Some contracts are up at McLaren. Red Bull contracts are up again because insane.
Going to be good.
We've closed the gap to each other a little bit tighter.
We have.
I'm now 14 points down on you.
Coming at Maria with a Bottas in the middle.
Could be in big seats.
Yeah. A lot of general drivers could be in big seats. Yeah, very true.
Well, we got through maybe 75% of the news topics, but that's okay. That leaves us some for next time in case it's another dry fortnight.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, sir. Pleasure as always.
Thank you. Other things in the stand-ins. We've got Bottas has moved slightly ahead of you as well. Ocon got ahead of Massa, and Red Bull got ahead of Force India. But we are 100 points clear of them.
We are over 100 points clear of Red Bull.
We are going full Haas. Love it.
We are. I have to say, I am enjoying this season though, because we are generally very closely matched.
Yeah.
There's been some bees dick, as Mark Webber would call it, qualifying sessions where, particularly in Q2, we've been like very, very closely matched. And in the races, I don't think we've ever had a season where we spent as much time together on track as this season.
No. And we actually had some battles as well, so that's good.
We did. And to be honest, I was relishing the battle with you this Grand Prix, but you had that lock-up and I got through because of that. I think it would have been interesting to see if I could actually get past you under racing conditions, because I really wasn't sure I could. But anyway, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
What's going on for you this week?
Plenty. So people have noticed my channel is now quite often on 2 videos a day. And so there's quite a few playthroughs of lots and lots of different games. And there'll be some extra GT Sport stuff going up this week as well. And once I've reinstalled it, Project Cars 2. So lots of racing bits. How about yourself?
I want to get in on that. I'm still on hiatus. I'm still not doing anything, mate. I am doing this podcast and I am working.
Dope.
Like actual working, the kind of work that pays. So I'm doing that, but I do eventually want to get back. I want to get into streaming more, to be honest, because I think it's worked so much better for this. Now nothing has to be edited. I think it's also better for other things as well. I think that was part of the problem, right? That doing the YouTube channel, it wasn't just the time spent recording; it was the time spent editing and waiting for the file to stitch together and save, and then uploading it. And before you know it, you spent 4 hours, 5 hours out of a day sticking some things together. Yeah. So I'd like to get back into streaming, maybe a few weeks from now. I want to get into GT Sport because you've sold me on it with your videos. So maybe I'll do a little bit of GT Sport. I also want to pick up my F1 2017 career mode, where I did stream it a little bit. I finished my season at McLaren, did very well, moved on to Red Bull, and I'm currently on round 4, where I am running away with the championships so far. So that'll be a snooze fest. Come and join me for that.
Sold. And GT Sport is still on special on the PlayStation Network store, I believe, until next Friday. So it's on about 40% off.
Sold.
Yeah. Go. Thanks everyone for watching. You guys will take care. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, as always. Saturday, 4 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Central European. And adjust your clocks wherever else you are in the world. And as always, happy racing. Bye for now.
Ciao.
So European.